What's up, everybody? Welcome to Anime Initiative, the anime focus segment of Comic Book Nation. I am back. I am your host, Megan Peters, and I'm here with my two friends and colleagues, Evan Valentine and Nick Valdez.
Hey,
guys.
everybody.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot of news to get through. First, I will preface this episode with there's like active tornado warnings in my area. So I just a dip. My lovely friends here will just continue the conversation as I huddle under a desk with my
Megan is braving the elements to be here. She is
Honestly,
our avatar.
You know what, honestly, when it comes to anime, nothing will stop me. Nor rain, nor sleet, no hail. I'm much like the United States Postal Service. But yes, welcome to episode 7 of Anime Initiative. We have a pretty packed show today talking about a lot of good news that's happened in the last 7 days. We just got over one of the most dreaded days in anime, which is April Fool's Day, because nobody is more serious yet also unserious than the anime industry on April Fool's Day. And we also got a good non-prank bits of news in terms of new show announcements and a couple of interest pieces before we get to the second half of the show, where we dive in to my favorite MonsterVerse movie ever, Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. We're going to be talking down our breakdown, our piece, our reviews. I don't know, Evan and Nick are looking they're looking at me right now. You're not watching the live episode right now. You're missing the absolute look that Nick is giving me. So I think we're gonna have a nice discussion there. But first, let's just start off. Let's talk about kind of what news we got going on, because I want to discuss the absolute banger of a finale that Solo Leveling had for season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did y'all watch it?
Yes, indeed. So Evan and Megan will remember that when Solo Leveling was first coming out, like in one of our meetings, I was like, so when does it get good?
Great way to start off.
Yeah. There you go.
And then, but here we are now. If you recall, in Anime Initiative's early episodes, I was shouting it out at random because it did get good, thankfully.
It was a slow burn. Usually it takes like 2 to 3 episodes for a season to get good. I really felt like it took 6 episodes to become invested in Solo Leveling.
It really was half the season that it finally, like, we finally got the main gimmick really rolling. Jinwoo was already figuring out how his leveling up was working, and spoilers for season 1, he reaches like a whole new level of power, and it's total like wish fulfillment, edgelord nonsense, but also it's edgelord nonsense that I love.
It's very pretty edgelord nonsense. The team at A1 Pictures put everything they had into the animation of the show. The number of key animators on the finale, it was like the who's who of the industry. I mean, the list just kept going and going and going. So truly, if you have not watched Solo Leveling season 1, it's a single core, it's a 12 episode run. It takes a hot minute to get into, especially if you're not really like dedicated or sold on the webtoon that this is adapting from. If you're brand new to the series, it might take you a second, but it pays off. It really does.
Yeah.
So we have season 2 confirmed. That's the big news. We are getting more. Everyone saw it coming. I mean, no one can say they're surprised by this. Season 2 of Solo Leveling has been announced. We will be getting it. At this point, we're not sure what that kind of release window looks like, but they've confirmed it. It's happening. So hopefully it stays good. Hopefully it doesn't take like another 4 episodes into season 2 to get back into it. But yeah, Solo Leveling season 2 is coming, which is a big announcement, but perhaps bigger for Evan Valentine. It's the announcement of a very specific martial arts fighting anime that as soon as it was announced, I was like looking at my watch and I was like, all right, how long is it going to take for Evan to text me about this? And it was like clockwork. Within 5 minutes of it being announced, I got a message. So please tell us about this anime, Evan.
Yes, Baki the Grappler is returning for Bakido. Or Bakido?
I have no idea.
The way of Baki. This kind of threw me for a loop, to be honest, because I think one of the things that's really tough for us is looking at a lot of anime franchises, especially ones that are like on Netflix. It's hard to understand like how well they're doing in terms
Mhm.
of like, we don't necessarily get as many ratings from Netflix versus like something that releases in Japan. Baki did release in Japan, but it was first and foremost kind of like a Netflix thing. So this kind of goes to show just how big Baki Hanma has become for Netflix, because I personally was totally cool with them ending the last, without going into spoilers, the last season kind of gave us the long-awaited Baki versus his dad, the ogre, Yujiro Hanma, which is
Mhm.
kind of what the big impetus of the season or the series has been. And so I was kind of cool with that kind of being the end of it. Baki do So to give you a quick rundown of what this is going to be, this is effectively the Japanese government finds a way to clone one of the greatest martial arts fighters of all time, Musashi Miyamoto, I think his name is, but they clone him. They dig up his body and they clone him, and Baki and the rest of his fellow fighters have to fight this guy. This is that premise is actually a lot less crazy than having to fight a caveman named Pickle, which also happened in the series earlier on.
It
So
just sounds like a fever dream.
it really
Every
is a
time
fever
I
dream, but it's
hear you
amazing. I love it.
every time I hear you say a sentence that encapsulates Baki, the grappler, it just sounds like you're on something, you know?
That I'm just making it up.
That's
It's
so
really
real.
I'm on something, and that's a love for Baki Hanma.
Okay, that's a shirt. That's a shirt right there. If someone wants
That's
to
what
mock
I'm.
up that
But
shirt design, hit us up
it's
with it.
yeah. So this is actually this is kind of close to the end of where the manga is right now.
Mhm.
Because Keisuke Itagaki has kind of, this is kind of like the second to last recent thing. So
Mhm.
we'll see what Netflix kind of does with that, if they're going to create more original stuff for Baki, but I'm enthusiastic about it because I literally thought the anime was at an end. I didn't think it would continue, so color me surprised on it.
I mean, between this and the King and Ashura stuff that we
Mhm.
have in the works, honestly, Netflix just like opened Evan's brain, rifled through, and just picked out
What are
every
the kids
Baki
like?
release.
Let's see this anime writer. What is he talking about a lot? JoJo, Baki, okay.
I know, that's it. We got JoJo, we got Baki, and we got Gundam. If there are
Yep.
3 things that Evan knows, that's it. Well, that's obviously a massive announcement. Plus, we would be, remiss to not mention that Shangri-La Frontier also
Mhm.
got an announcement for season 2. Now, I'll be honest, I only just recently started watching Shangri-La Frontier. Have either of you kind of gotten into it yet?
Oh yes,
Mhm.
Evan and I, like, this is our kind of like hidden gem. This is the one
Mhm.
where, yeah,
Ooh,
we watch. So we watch a lot of these things for our jobs.
so
That is
much
the
anime
nature.
all the time.
Yeah, that is the nature of our career. Evan and I, I think I forget, it was like halfway through when we like reached
Yeah.
out to one another, like, oh, are you watching this? Oh yeah, I'm
Mhm.
also watching it.
It's
Because it's not like a series that you expect to like have like it's not explosive every week, but it really is just a guy playing a video game, and it's
the
not
Mhm.
just a
stakes
guy
could not be
playing.
lower. The
Yes,
stakes could
yes,
not be lower.
it's literally just a guy like exploiting as much as he can out of a video game, making his best build. It's basically like, if a player, like if you watch like an Elden Ring player stream, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, he's gonna go on a tangent for like 2 episodes just because he wants this like really rare material, and he's gonna do wild stuff for it. And then all of a sudden there are these huge battles with like explosive animation that come out of nowhere. And so like weekly, it's not a show that we were going to be like, oh, we can't wait to tell everybody about this, to write about this spin, because it's not really that kind of show.
Mhm.
But now that it's over, and I'm glad season 2 is coming, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do for the next few months without my weekly dose of Sunraku just doing wacky video game stuff,
Something that took me for a loop with this announcement was the fact that season 2 is confirmed for October, which is
Yeah.
like, that
And
Yeah,
turnaround time
that is
is
an impressive
insane.
turnaround.
Yeah,
That's
it's 2 cores also. So that's another 24 to 26 episodes that they already have in the can. And that is wild. And I cannot wait because like I just said, and it's just kind of like a fun weekly thing to watch in between all the intense shows you might be watching.
mm,
But now that it's over, it's also a perfect binge. Shangri-La Frontier,
mhm, mhm.
perfect binge, I would say. Go check out season 1 now. Yeah, now's the
Yeah,
perfect
Megan,
time.
totally put that on your list with Konosuba.
Well,
As it's
see, that's the interesting thing. So I just finished like I'm 3 episodes into Shangri-La Frontier.
Mhm.
This is a great segue because I have watched the first 2 seasons of Konosuba and
oh
I
nice.
love it. I'm so sad I went this long without Konosuba. Like I understand everything. Like I have never related so hard to like the high hopes of the characters as they get squashed again and again and again. It's almost like weirdly Schadenfreude as I watch it, but it's so
Yes.
funny and it's so crisp. But unfortunately, Konosuba and a couple other spring anime series that are coming out in the next week or so. You know, we talk a lot about manga getting leaked. So these shows got hit with an anime leak. So the first
Wow.
episode of
Mm.
Konosuba season 3, episode 1 popped up online along with several other series that are supposed to be coming out in the spring, a couple of isekai titles, as well as a recap episode for That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime that's coming up. Which, again, this podcast here, we support official releases. We are not going to point you in any direction for these leaks, but it is worth noting that it's pretty uncommon for anime leagues to hit the industry. You normally see, you know, influencers or anything online like talking about things that they know that are coming forward in an anime, but you very rarely get whole episodes leaked. And at this point, there's still not a confirmed uh avenue or path in which this leak happened. But the fact that Konosuba got hit by it, now that I am number one Konosuba stan with Nick and Evan, I'm just really sad. Like that has to suck so much for the production team.
Yeah, I get being excited for new anime. Of course, we are too. It's part of the whole feeling of spring. The seasonal effectiveness disorder goes away. A whole new batch of
Mhm.
animes coming. You're like, oh man, I can't wait. And I get wanting to see these things early, but also that also means if you see it early, that's one extra week you're going to have to wait for the next one. And if
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
on time with everyone else, then that means you get to, when it's over, it's over. You don't have to be like sitting here waiting until episode 2 comes out because you turned your what could be like a couple of weeks into like a month, and that's terrible to me.
Yeah. It is definitely strange. It also goes to show just how big anime is coming, that the fact that people are trying to data mine whole episodes, please stop. I will ask you, please stop. I will say, man, pirating and things like that are never acceptable, but it is taken so seriously in Japan. Please don't. We beg you don't. But it is there. It has happened. And that is just one of 2 very interesting interest pieces that I'll say came from Japan this week that we've covered at Comicbook.com. Uh to skip ahead in our rundown a little bit, because I saw this headline and I thought it was a joke, and it was totally not a joke. But the Communist Party of Japan has been doing a survey nationally across Japan, as you might guess, polling, participants, readers of newspapers and magazines, whether they have seen inappropriate or, overtly sexualized content in manga magazines and in just regular magazines in
Oh
convenience stores
no.
across Japan.
Mm.
And after getting the results of that poll, the Japanese Communist Party is now seeking to file a complaint with the United Nations over the pronounced use of overtly sexualized women in manga.
Oh no.
Wow.
And I read that and I was like, this is like one I was like, it's like an early April Fool's Day prank. It's totally real. Somebody in Japan noticed that this survey was going on in a local magazine that's run by the political party there, and they are taking it very seriously. The amount of manga women that are that are too attractive or too sexualized in manga, which to me is wild seeing that. What do y'all think?
It makes, unfortunately, it makes sense.
Mhm.
Like it's a lot. There are whole genres dedicated to it. Off the top of my head, there are 10 series that I'm thinking about right now that I will not list here because
Only
this is a
10?
family show.
Yeah, but if you want to do Anime Initiative after dark, you gotta let us know. You gotta subscribe for that one.
Totally on
Leave
the
us
way.
a comment.
But yeah, like even just anime, just like Konosuba, we literally just mentioned it, and it's all over Konosuba. It's kind of part of the nature of like shonen. So shonen is the genre for selling to younger boys. This is the boys magazines, the boy genre, and a lot of that is high octane action, and then pretty characters to look at. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like and then you get the older series, which are like, we grew out of wanting just high octane action all the time, but we still kind of want the pretty characters to look at. And it's not just the female characters either. There are whole genres where it's like lots of pretty men. Like Bishoujo is kind of like a whole
Mhm.
genre term coined for like just to describe pretty men along those same lines. And so it's it's unfortunate that it's getting called out, but also it is a thing. So, but that's also like it's not just exclusive to manga and anime either. Like you look at
Yeah.
comics, you look at art, it's all over. People just want to look at pretty things.
I'm actually amazed that this is happening now versus like, did they not watch anime in the 80s? Like,
Yeah, like this isn't yesterday, right? Yeah, 1000%.
because I don't know if people like if you want to go in a time machine or you just want to pick out some anime properties from the 80s and watch how you watch stuff like Blackjack, MD Geist,
Yeah.
Guyver, and just watch that, just how horrifically violent and how they did not give an F about any of that stuff. And there was, I guess it just goes to show how popular anime and manga has become since that time period, that now is the time when they're kind of throwing that out there. But, we'll
Mhm.
see.
And
Yeah,
one thing I
it's
will mention that isn't seen as much outside of Japan. So some of the particular like magazines that were mentioned in this complaint are like Weekly Young Jump. The what's the name of the magazine that Berserk's in?
Yeah,
Young
Young
Animal?
Animal.
Young Animal, yeah, so Young
Mhm.
Animal was one of the listed ones. There's several others, but one thing that, kinda gives context to the situation is obviously you have, various depictions of women in manga, whether they are considered sexualized or not, that's up to you. One part of the complaint particularly focuses, on a type of modeling in Japan that is often seen in older, m you know, manga
mm,
Mhm.
anthologies that are meant for older readers that are just shown openly in convenience stores. I think it's pronounced gravure or gravure or gravura. It's a type of modeling that's with real women in Japan that's like littered all over manga magazines that it is very risque, and that is what part of the complaint is taking issue with is that they're saying maybe we shouldn't just have those facing young children looking for, Shonen Jump. They're just trying to get their one piece and then they see this. That seems to be what the complaint is also tied to, which is less obvious here in America since we don't usually get this full anthologies published over here. We just get chapters published. So we don't get the full context of what's on the cover. But that seems to be kind of one of the issue that's going on. Again, having this kind of weird, if somewhat censorship issue isn't new to the
Mhm.
anime or manga industry, but everyone kind of just did a double take over the weekend when bloggers in Japan were like, so it looks like the Japanese Communist Party is contacting the United Nations because of sexy manga women, and everybody went, what? That is a headline, and you know what, it's a pretty good one, honestly, I gotta admit. So to shift gears on that, one thing that I really need to talk about with all of you guys here is the fact that Dragon Ball has given Vegeta a brand new power up that looks incredibly familiar.
Yep.
Evan, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, obviously with Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, one of the things that Xenoverse does is it kind of takes a page from if folks aren't familiar, there's currently kind of a spin-off anime that's continuing that's based off an arcade game called Dragon Ball Heroes. And the spin-off is called Super Dragon Ball Heroes, and what it does is it's effectively like fan service the show. It takes the opportunity to bring back old movie villains, movie heroes, characters, etc., and kind of gives them the chance to shine. But what it also does is sometimes it peppers in some new transformations, and that's kind of what Xenoverse 2 is doing here. Now, this is kind of called, I don't know the full backstory as to how this new transformation is acquired, what it is that sets it off, but it's called Ultra Supervillain. And it's a new transformation that kind of looks...
That's right, Nick. That's right,
Nick's
Nick.
just having a ball with that one.
Listening, here's it again. We have Ultra Instinct, Ultra Ego, and now
Ultra Supervillain. And it effectively, it kind of looks like this. It's the same shade as Vegeta's Ultra Ego, which has yet to appear in, from what I understand, any video game. Any obviously anime adaptation as of yet. It's only been in the manga so far. This kind of style, the aura, the hair color is kind of similar to that. We don't know how he gets it, but Dragon Ball Heroes is notorious for kind of injecting these new transformations. Vegeta, this isn't even the newest transformation that Vegeta has that didn't appear in any of the other stuff. He had one that was called Evil Saiyan that was just kind of like, it made his eyes like blacker. It was introduced by the evil Saiyan known as Cumber, who showed up in a straight jacket. And so I wish that they would just like rip the band-aid off and just start introducing Ultra Ego into anything, because I like Ultra Ego as a transformation for Vegeta specifically. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it kind of looks, and whether this new transformation, it's not going to appear in anything official. Let's be real. Yeah, but
shout out to Xenoverse for making it happen, though. That's the thing, right? It's,
for sure.
Xenoverse 2 has been churning out content steadily for like what feels like 10 years. And like the way they keep finding new ways to do things is super impressive. So even if this is just like a color swap power for Vegeta, the fact that they're like coined it, the fact they gave it a name, the fact that it's part of like a grander new story DLC that they're adding, new characters, new attacks, who knows what else is coming. Like, shout out to Xenoverse 2. I know people want Xenoverse 3, but let's just be happy with Xenoverse 2. Like, I think at this point, let's just all kind of submit to the fact that we're getting Xenoverse 2 for like 20 years, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2 are like fundamental video games that I have played and continue to play. They're absolutely insane. And the rise of Ultra Supervillain, like I know it's stupid, and I don't, fight me if you want to about Dragon Ball canon and the sanctity of it, but every time I see Goku or Vegeta or Piccolo or really any character in Dragon Ball get a new transformation, it just warms my heart. It just gets the adrenaline pumping. And so when, with this trailer for the new Xenoverse 2 DLC that's coming out for the Future Saga Chapter 1, like, I'm in. No notes. I'm sold. And it gives Vegeta a new power. I don't care if it's just a stopgap for Ultra Ego. We'll get it eventually. But just the fact that it's called Ultra Supervillain, it just
that's funny. I did not know that was the name of it. That is ridiculous.
And to segue into, we mentioned earlier at the top of this podcast, we were going to address the April Fool's Day shenanigans that happened yesterday. Dragon Ball also dropped one of the best April Fool's Day pranks, or not even a prank, but just like a little gag yesterday that I only noticed this morning. On Dragon Ball Legends, which is a mobile game that I play religiously, they had a special daily mission yesterday where you played as Raditz fighting the farmer with a shotgun.
Oh man.
And let me tell you what, the farmer did damage. So if you do not know, in Dragon Ball Z, when Raditz first shows up on Earth looking for Goku, he lands on this ostrich farm, and the farmer is like, understandably, like, "Hey, you're trespassing. Get off." And he tries to shoot Raditz. Well, in the anime, Raditz grabs the bullet and pings it back at the farmer, effectively killing him. And everyone was like, that wasn't fair. That wasn't even like, that was such a cheap shot. So Dragon Ball Legends for April Fool's Day had a special daily mission where you got to play Raditz fighting the farmer again with a shotgun. So it gave us the round 2 we didn't even know we needed,
Yeah.
which I
I
appreciate.
love that. I
It's
love
like,
that.
what a
Yeah.
disservice. What a disservice to Raditz, whose power level, I believe, was anywhere from 1200 to 1500, and the farmer's power level was 5.
Yeah, it was like 5, but you know what? He at least had a power level.
That's true. That's
You know,
true.
it was at least there. So, but that was one of the April Fool's Day things that went on. If you are not familiar with anime, the anime industry is so serious about April Fool's Day. Manga industry, publishers, licensors, creators, the whole gambit, they all love to do it, which makes our job for the 3 of us a nightmare if you work on April Fool's Day. But there were some really good pranks that I love to see. I think probably my favorite that I saw yesterday for April Fool's Day is twofold. One, Bleach went hard showcasing Bleach the High School Warfare, which is a dating simulator that it released that focuses on Ulquiorra and Grimjow and a bunch of the Arankars from the original Bleach run. And it is just kind of like an Otome web game that was made available. And secondly, I loved the anime My Happy Marriage. Well, they created like a little 8-bit sprite video game for it that was like, oh, we found this inside of the series, and it was like a little game trailer you could watch. And now I want both of those things for real, but cool. Did y'all see anything that stuck out to you?
Yes, I wanted to shout out Adult Swim real quick, just as
Of
a
course.
quick, yeah, like a very small rundown. So Adult Swim's been playing April Fool's pranks for like 15 years or even longer than that. They used to show The Room, Tommy Wiseau's The Room, as like just part of the annual thing. Then one year everything changed when they brought back Toonami for a night, and then that ushered in a whole thing of like, let's go bigger for April Fools. So Smiling Friends is a big new show that Adult Swim has. It's been coming back for season 2. People have been really waiting for it. They before April Fool's Day, they announced that we'd be seeing new Smiling Friends, quote unquote, new Smiling Friends on April 1st at midnight. Naturally, everyone was skeptic. It's like, yeah, we're probably getting something, maybe a season 2, maybe something, who knows? Because Smiling Friends, the pilot has been shown before. One night they randomly showed the whole season. So we just didn't know what to expect. The night of, it turns out it is Smiling Friends, but everything is puppets. They remade like 3 full
That's
episodes.
amazing.
They remade 3 full episodes of the show entirely with puppets and entirely different styles. So all 3 of them are different. And then at the end of those, there was a sneak, like a stealth premiere for season 2, episode 1. So even if like you were bummed out about the puppets, you're like, oh, this isn't season 2. We got season 2 at the end of it, and then we got the release date announced for May 12th. So it was a great year for Adult Swim, which has gone all out with adults with April Fool's jokes in the past, but this year felt really, really cool.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, Gwibbly, the new character in season 2, episode 1. His catchphrase is ooh.
Oh man, it just goes to show like the level of commitment that Adult Swim has, because it was an amazing undergoing. Just they didn't have to do this, just the amount of creativity that it took in order to recreate some of the Smiling Friends episodes using puppets and everything. And I don't know if I know that Adult Swim is located here in Atlanta. Shout out Atlanta, Georgia. But there's also the Center for Puppetry Arts here, which is run by the Henson Foundation, which might have helped them out on this. But it's absolutely amazing. Like, good, you know, Godspeed Adult Swim for being able to take the opportunity to kind of create this amazing April Fool's Day project. It's fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah.
So obviously between animation and anime, you know, April Fool's Day was definitely a very busy time for
Yes.
us three here, but also just entertainment in general. It's always fun to see, as frustrating as it is, because there are obviously a bunch of like bigger fans who try to step forward and be like, hey, look, this big thing got announced. This big thing's being announced. They try to like do prank leaks. Man, that is just some of the most I don't even know the word to use that's appropriate for this podcast in terms
It's
of
annoying. It's annoying.
I mean, it's annoying in terms of not that I'm getting duped by it, but just to see like the fandom reaction and then the letdown.
Yeah.
Because then it's there, I'm in like the aftermath, just like shrugging my shoulders, like you need to check what day it is. It is April 1st. Plus, it's the fact that April 1st in Japan begins when it's still March here in the United States. That also always trips up people. So you know, we'll get more of this next year. We'll cover it next year on this show, but just as a friendly reminder, always know when April 1st is coming if you are into anime. You just got to be aware. So but that covers our newsreel for the day. We gotta pay for our bills and go to an ad break real quickly. But when we come back, we are gonna be doing our monsters breakdown of Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. So stay tuned. Anime Initiative, the anime focus segment of Comic Book Nation. Little known fact, we also love all things kaiju. So, of course, Godzilla Kong, The New Empire was going to be one of our major focuses for the podcast. Well, it is now out. It is now here. It is breaking box office records for 2024. And let's just go ahead and top off this entire conversation with a spoiler warning. We are going to be getting into spoilers. If you have not seen Godzilla Kong, just go ahead and pause this episode. Come back once you've watched it, and then you can come back and listen to everything we have to say about it. Based on the look I got from Nick earlier, I think this could be a little bit of a spicy conversation. So before I go, I want to know, Nick, what'd you think of the movie?
Okay.
Oh, no, this is the reaction.
I was just mostly shocked that you said it was your favorite. Like I respect your opinion, Megan. I'm not saying that. It's just I would not say this is my particular favorite. I think it's probably the weaker against Godzilla versus Kong, because it no longer has the novelty. A lot of this feels forced in a way. Just as a general, I know I don't want to start this off with such a bad foot, but
do it. Make a bold statement.
I know. It's unfortunate that it didn't have as many monkey shines as I was hoping going in. Like there is an incredible like 80 to 90-minute Hollow Earth animated movie that we could have out of this that goes full Gennady Tartakovsky's Primal, dialogue free. Kong and baby monkey Kong, who we didn't even know the name. Yeah, you would not know its name is Suko if not for the licensing or products and all that stuff, which is great stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff we need. There are incredible scenes like that, and then huge chunks of the time where there are people in it, which logistically I get you need to have people in your movie, because you're not going to have Kong out here on press tours. You're not going to have Kong attending press premieres, but I was so bored. I felt myself like losing my grip on things during scenes where people were in it. And I just want to preface this by saying I get when people are like, oh, well, I don't go for the humans. I go for the giant monsters. Me too. But we have to sit through these human parts too. Like the humans are here. They're wedged in here. There's literally a plot for the humans to be involved more when Kong gets a toothache. So it's just the stuff we get is cool. It's just not cool enough for me to balance out everything else in it. So I'm so sorry to start this off on this foot, but that's where I stand.
Look, we gotta have. There's two sides to every story, and I respect your opinion. We are friends. We are coworkers. Long time. Love you, man. I think you're wrong. Evan, where do you sit in the debate?
I sit right in the middle. I didn't dislike it.
All right.
I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it as much as Nick, and I don't think I liked it as much as you, Megan. I think that this is fantastic in terms of finding that. For me, I loved the kaiju fights in this, and the levels of the battles themselves, and how like this is a goofy movie. It's very goofy, but I appreciate that. And one of the things that really grinded my gears before I even saw this was like reviewers being like, this isn't Godzilla -1. And it's like, yeah, dude, it was never going to be Godzilla -1. That was never going to happen.
There's so many iterations of Godzilla.
Yeah.
There are just even if you not even getting as granular as film to film, but if you want to look era to era, I mean, the current era of Godzilla resembles nothing of the Showa era Godzilla, which Godzilla -1 is completely different from. But obviously, looking at Godzilla Kong the New Empire, it's nothing but Showa vibes. So you can have more than one iteration of Kong and Godzilla at a time.
And that's not that's not a bad thing. I think that like especially like the kaiju fight when the gravity goes out, that's amazing. Kong getting a big mechano fist, like I love it. Sign me up for that. I talked about this a little before we jumped into it, Megan, but I'm a huge fan of Scar King. Ooh, I love Scar King. What a great villain. I loved how
he's like a Mad Max villain in
he's like a Mad Max.
He's got
I loved his swagger, the way he leaned. He got that dog in him. Yo, I love the way that he was the way that he did the thing where he showed off Kong's metal tooth and just started laughing and like, that was great. I love that. Like on the flip side though, I will say that I thought Shimu could have been more. I thought that there wasn't like a lot of time dedicated to him, and that's kind of a big knock I had against the movie was like, and I told Nick this over the weekend when I was writing about because we were like all hands on deck when it came to writing about the New Empire and how big it was. Someone timed how much time was dedicated to Godzilla in this movie, and I think that he's on screen for about 8.5 minutes, which is kind of insane. But
yeah, totally. Like Godzilla got the top billing in this, but it really is Kong +1. It's Kong's
it's Kong's movie.
I mean, Suko is a bigger feature in this film than
for sure.
Yeah, this is much more a Kong Skull Island 3 than a Godzilla 4. So, and knowing that going in makes your experience much better. And that's the thing. I totally agree with Evan and Megan saying, yes, the Showa vibes are there. But what people don't remember about the Showa era is that the people were just as just as bad in those movies. But everything is so cartoonish that all you remember is the giant kaiju stuff because that's all you want to remember. Like, I get it. Full tokusatsu vibes. This is, when we finally get to the climax and all the giant monsters are fighting and you stopped caring about how many people are getting squashed, compared to Godzilla 2014, when the whole thing was like, oh, the countless lives lost, and then here we are a decade later going, oh yeah, here's a giant tooth flooding through Brazil.
So many people died.
Yeah, here's
so many people
Baki
died.
in Rio de Janeiro, whipping half a skyscraper in half and throwing the upper half of it at Kong. Like, at one point when that happened, I was like, they just don't even care anymore.
Yeah, and it rules. Like, that's the part that rules. And then I feel like, so I do have a suggestion for the humans if they do another one. I feel like humans should be like in Dragon Ball. There should be the Dragon Ball thing of like, when fights get so powerful, it's just one-on-one, and everyone on the outside is just kind of going, oh man, this fight is so like amazing to look at. I feel like that should be the people involved, right? Everyone should just be like watching screens going, oh, I can't believe Kong's doing this. Can't believe Godzilla's powering up. He's turning Super Saiyan. And that's kind of what we get here. But then we get a whole subplot about like Gia and Mothra, and Mothra's here. Spoilers, Mothra's here. And,
The fact that Mother Mothra is back, I mean, we knew it was a matter of time. I'm gonna be, I guess, contrary to you on that point. I think that it was interesting having Gia there as a connection to Gong and Mothra, and kind of building that plot. I felt like that was the only human plot they needed. I felt like we could have cut out every single other human in the series,
Great
and
point.
it could have just been Gia and Rebecca Hall's character as Dr. Eileen Andrews. I feel like we didn't need, Brian Tyree Henry's character there, or Dan Stevens' character there. Though Trapper is hilarious, and I want like a spinoff, like a Monarch Legend of Monsters spinoff of him. But in terms of what this movie was, I felt like having Gia as an integral part with the Iwi tribe was great. But the rest of the human stuff could have been nixed in lieu of that. Obviously it's no secret, I loved Godzilla Kong, the New Empire. My thing, I mean, if anyone asks me, my favorite era of Godzilla is Showa, because that is the first era of films I ever saw, because they're the funnest. I mean, they are insane. They are so goofy. It's like you're on a trip the whole time watching them. None of it makes sense. It's cobbled together nonsense, but it's fun, and it's colorful, and it's bright, and it's wacky, and it makes me laugh. And that's what I really enjoyed about Godzilla Kong, the New Empire. It felt like it was a version of Godzilla versus Kong taken to the next level of absurdity, which I like that self-awareness. And we have different eras. Even, we'll talk about the eras of, Toho's Godzilla for a long time, because he's that Godzilla iteration has been around for decades. Looking at the MonsterVerse, I mean, going back to what, Gareth Edwards did in, Godzilla 2014, that's a very different era of the MonsterVerse compared to what we saw with, Skull Island versus, Godzilla King of the Monsters, versus what director Adam Wingard has been doing with, his Godzilla Kong, duo partnership. It's different eras, and it's, comparing the two of them are apples to oranges. They're just so different in what they were trying to do and in their purpose. So for me, I just kind of take it one at a time, and I thought that, yeah, the human stuff here, we still have issues with it, but I felt like it was a major improvement from what we saw in Godzilla versus Kong. I felt a lot of the human stuff with Mecha Godzilla was just very clunky. So in terms of what Godzilla Kong did right, honestly, it gave us way more kaiju action, which I always want to see. And I feel like they did a lot better of a job in this movie adding anthropomorphic humanized elements to Kong and Godzilla and Zuko, because they were able to have scenes on their own and express and communicate, not using any dialogue, or not they weren't humans, but I mean, they're animals. I mean, I can tell what my cat's thinking usually depending on how how angrily they're staring at me. So I feel like this movie did a better job in kind of humanizing these characters.
Yeah.
Um which is
Mhm.
a risk that can backfire easily when you're talking about kaiju, because kaijus are inherently superhuman. They are more than human. So I was impressed with it. Just the action alone, I could have just taken so much more of it. I agree. I need like a whole Hollow Earth, Primal, Genji Tartakovsky, no dialogue, spin on this. Um,
Yeah.
that's where I
Yeah.
stand. So it seems like it's
Yeah.
me, Evan, Nick in terms of
Yeah.
rank.
Yeah. No, major kudos to Adam Wingard. Like he understands giant monsters, and because like there's a real strength to the visual presentation of them here. The fact that,
Mhm.
like Megan said, you get so much of that human element, which is why when we get more actual humans in here, it feels forced, because Kong's story is so human already. Like it's the, it's the common story trope of like, oh, you want to make a man a more interesting character, make him an adoptive father of like a random kid that he comes across. And
Right.
that's the idea in Godzilla Kong. He meets little baby Suko, and first he's an enemy who he he whips him around and hits other apes with. Like the noise I made when that happened is something that like only my theater knows, but that was the thing. And the human element is already there, and Kong, like the visual fidelity of Kong is so tightened
Mhm.
to a degree that like you get the story. And like Evan said, when Scar King's finally introduced, you get so much story packed into that, and then you get people talking about that story we just witnessed, and it's like that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's the stuff that feels like studio notes and all that stuff to me, where it's like, I don't think we needed like to they needed to hold our hands through that. Like we didn't need a full spoken prophecy about like who Scar King was, because we kind of got like he's got, he's got people work, he's got a work camp, he's got
Mhm.
slaves, like he's got things, and we get that he's a bad guy, he's very Mad Max, he's got a whip out of nowhere. Like
Yeah.
that's the stuff I want to know more about. I want to know more about Scar King. Like, what's up with the whip? What's up with the Shimo radioactive thing? Like, what is going on there? Like, how did he trap
Mhm.
Shimo? And there's so much of that I wish we got instead of what we got. I think that's what it is. But mainly my thing is like, man, we have an exciting world here, but we only see a fraction of it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That is true, and I think obviously that frustration comes from the fact that, the MonsterVerse has done really well in kind of forming a new universe for Godzilla to exist in,
Mhm.
and looking at Godzilla Kong, I mean, obviously, some people have their issues with it. It's got incredible ratings, with audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. Coming into the movie's opening weekend, I mean, initially industry experts thought the movie, domestically would make maybe $45 million.
Mhm.
It blew everything out of the water. Godzilla domestically, this film got 80 million domestically and just over $200 million globally, which is already made up its production budget. So
Mhm.
so in terms of Godzilla, Kong and the MonsterVerse getting a sequel, I don't know about you, it looks pretty likely to me. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously
Oh
there
yeah.
is the contingency of the fact that Toho has to agree with its licensing of the monsters between Warner Brothers and Legendary Entertainment. But just this money alone, I think it's a pretty clear-cut argument that we will be getting more of the MonsterVerse with Godzilla Kong. And one thing that I think is interesting that you mentioned, Evan, about, looking at the total amount of time Godzilla was on screen. Look, I
Mhm.
love Kong, but I didn't grow up with Kong. Kong wasn't like my
Mhm.
thing. It became my thing with the MonsterVerse. I have been true to Godzilla since I was a child. I had a Godzilla birthday party when I was 7. I had a giant inflatable Godzilla wearing a Barbie hat, which is actually hilarious when you think of the Barbenheimer optics there. Um, So I agree. I wanted more Godzilla. He was kind of this cranky cat the whole time, which I personally love, but I want more. And in recent interviews, Adam Wingard has said, if he is the one that is allowed to kind of guide the next installment of the MonsterVerse and kind of complete his trilogy vision for Godzilla and Kong, his sequel would give Godzilla a kind of emotional story like we saw in this movie for Kong.
Mhm.
Think about that premise.
I think that would be great. The interesting thing about where there's still so many kaiju that we have yet to see taken from the Toho stuff and brought to the legendary MonsterVerse. There's the thing about it is that you have to make it bigger. And you have to make it bigger in a way that like you don't necessarily lose more of the human stuff. Obviously, I think we're all a little bit divided on like how they handled the human interactions this time around. Like for me personally, my favorite MonsterVerse, and Nick you might be on the same page for this, but like my favorite MonsterVerse project has been Kong Skull Island. I thought that they came up with a very good balance of like the kaiju themselves as well as all of the human characters such as Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, John C. Reilly, everybody else, John Goodman's character, all of them kind of worked well in tandem with one another, bringing unique perspectives to Skull Island while also having, Kong was still there front and center. And that worked really well. So like we'll see where they I like the idea of having Godzilla more front and center in terms of which villain. I mean, I wrote about this over the weekend, and I wrote about it because I do think that this would be the best way for them to take it, is rather than going with a bigger monster like Biollante, who's obviously like, it's Godzilla meets a plant, or Destroya, who is very big, like he's kind of like if you mix
god.
Godzilla,
Destroya is like a god.
if you mix Godzilla with King Ghidorah and then you amplified it times 100, that's kind of like what Destroya is. For me personally, I would love Hedorah. I think Hedorah is not only like a great threat to the MonsterVerse, I think Hedorah is one of the scariest kaiju of all time. I think that he's creepy to look at. If you were to bring him like to the present, like give him a CG makeover where he just looks like a sludge monster with like he's terrifying, but he's also a threat to humanity in so much as like, there's a possibility that Destroya and Biollante will be able to take out mankind, but Hedorah is tailor-made to destroy humanity.
Yeah, he's just pollution and poison.
He's pollution.
Like,
he can transform. He can transform into this UFO thing that can float over people, and when he does, it kills everything that's beneath him. So, like, I think that would make for a great threat moving forward, unless of course they were to go with the destroy all monsters, which would just be smash them all together.
I hope not. It is not time for Destroya.
No, I really think it is a destroy all monsters kind of path. Because there are so many I want to see too. Like behind me, I have Godzilla versus Megalon because it's my favorite. Because not only do you get Megalon, you get Gigan in it, and also, if you want more humans and you want Dan Stevens back, he could be the guy piloting Jet Jaguar. So, like, you can do like you. Oh
my god! I never put that together.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So part of me thinks that's the next step because, like, you have. I don't remember if I talked about this, Evan. Maybe I dreamed about it or something, talking about it. But because you have Godzilla, Kong, you have Titans and monsters and giant monkeys. Next step is robots. Next step is getting us we can't have the Pacific Rim crossover. Do giant robots, do Jet Jaguar, do whatever giant Titan monster robot thing you want to make. Just do it. Next step is robots. I think that's how you. I think that's where to go.
It. The next step is I think we laid ground for that with Mechagodzilla. They've got to keep it going. They'll be like, all right, well, it didn't work necessarily with doing Godzilla. Well, if we make just like a giant Jet Jaguar. Eventually we get the Ultraman crossover, but that's going to be a long time.
Yeah.
We can dream. Fingers
So
crossed.
yeah, we're gonna a giant Dan Stevens punching like Godzilla for whatever reason. I think people would love that. It would make $1 billion. So
Right. Yeah. This movie officially pushed the MonsterVerse past 2 billion. Give me Jet Jaguar Dan Stevens, and I personally will make sure it crosses 3 billion globally. But between, we talked about, the human aspect, and again, it's carrots to blueberries trying to compare Godzilla -1 to Godzilla
Mhm.
Kong. But, again and again, the world has praised the human aspect of how Godzilla -1 so seamlessly blended the kaiju story with the humanity of it all. So it can be done again. I mean, and Kong Skull Island is also a really great example of that, even within the MonsterVerse.
Mhm.
So it's gonna happen. The movies are making just an incredible amount of money, and it's just a really nice kind of kaiju renaissance, I feel, for the three of
Mhm.
us as just like lifelong fans. I mean, we will beat Godzilla -1 to death in terms of our affection for it. We will
Yeah.
just smother it with love. We had Monarch Legacy of Monsters last year, and then looking specifically at, I mean, even anime, I mean, we have Kaiju number 8, which is coming out, which,
Mhm.
us then the three of us in our spring kind of preview had nothing but love for, and even to a lesser extent with like the Tokusatsu Sentai kind of Go-Go Loser Ranger, where we're gonna have kind of monsters in that as well. It's a really nice kind of kaiju renaissance that just makes me feel so vindicated that when I was a kid in middle school trying to talk about Godzilla, everyone thought I was talking about the Godzilla 1999 or whatever that they did in
Ooh.
Hollywood, which no. I was trying to talk to them about like Gigan and stuff, and it went nowhere. And so now I'm feeling that vindication.
Megan, were you that girl that wanted to go on a date with Godzilla? Is that what it
Oh my
was?
god, yes. Yes. If you do not know, on Twitter, there are videos of this, in preparation for the Godzilla anniversary. A talk show in Japan had somebody dress up in, like, a full Godzilla costume and take this, like, teenage girl on a date because she was a super mega fan, and they, like, held hands and went on, like, a picnic. And watching that, legitimately, I was jealous. Legitimately, I was a little bit angry.
It
So,
should have been me.
I know, it could have been me. Why? Yeah, so that is me. Um, but it's a good renaissance, and I'm happy with
Mhm.
it. So, regardless of where you sit, if you, really like Godzilla Kong, or you're meh, or you have issues with it, it's definitely worth checking out. It is just
Mhm.
a visual spectacle. And then you guys, anyone listening to us can hit any of the three of us up to talk about the pros and cons of the
Mhm.
movie. We love that. So I think that's about it for today.
Mhm.
I'm just like basking in the glow of Godzilla right now. I didn't even really get to talk about Mothra, which just like truly, oh man, Mothra. I'm number one Mothra fan. So we'll get to that next week. We'll figure that out. I'll find a segue next week. But if you like what you listen to, this is Anime Initiative. We talk all things anime, manga, animation. We talk about tokusatsu, kaiju, sentai, you name it. We'll talk about it. If you want to hit either of the three of us up, you can find me on social media at Megan Peters CV. Evan, where can they find you?
You can find me at EV Comedy, and please hit me up. I will talk with the grappler as much
Baki
as
the
you want.
Grappler. Yeah, if you need a Baki the Grappler synopsis or explanation, in depth or surface, Evan has you. And Nick, where can people
I'm
find you?
here for you.
You can find me at Valdizology on all the socials, and you also, if you also happen to be watching RuPaul's Drag Race season 16's going to its final episodes, you can find me over at Pop Culture Social Call with Anna Rumor.
Awesome. Well, if you
Mhm.
liked our show, obviously keep listening. We have several episodes banked. Leave us comments on wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple, wherever you find it. Leave a comment, leave a rating, let us know, ask us questions. We love to talk to you guys. And if you want even more podcasts from Comic Book Nation, we have plenty of them. We have, of course, the OG Comic Book Nation, where we talk all things geeky. If you want comics, we have the pull list. And if you like gaming, we have Quick Save, which we talk about all things video games. So if you are a nerd, Comic Book Nation should be your home. Should be your homeland, essentially. Actually, no, that's really good. Comic Book Nation's your homeland if you're a nerd. And of course, Animation, we keep it real with all things anime. So until next week, live long, prosper. That's sci-fi, but we still endorse it here. Catch y'all later.